Okay, good morning, everybody. So today we're going to talk about planning, and it's that love-hate relationship that people have with planning. It's like, how much do I do? How much is enough? How much is too much? How do I use it? You know, when do I dust it off? Why can't I follow my plan? Why do I look at my plan a few years later and just go, no, that wasn't it? Or for some people, they're actually really good at planning, and they look at their plan and go, hey, I've actually hit all those milestones. That's awesome. I've actually done it. So it's like having the prediction, if you like, and then the proof of what you've been doing. So I'm going to get a little bit of a consensus. So who actually likes planning?
I love it. I love it.
Cool. Okay, so Lyn loves it. Anybody else love it?
Yeah, I think it gives you real direction.
Yeah, it has purpose, but the point of a plan is that it's supposed to be a living document. It's something that you just think, oh my God, this is amazing, I'm going to do this. So it's really, a lot of people try and put too much detail in a very long range plan. So what I tend to do is have a long range intention of where I want to go and what I want to do, and then I break it down into 90-day plans, because a 90-day plan you can follow, you can keep it alive on your desktop, you've got it in front of you, you can actually tick off the strategies and the tactics, and you can see the progress. Whereas I think when you do one very long range plan, you tend not to look at it because it feels too future focused. There's not enough now stuff happening. So that's a fair assumption.
Yeah, I agree with that, Pauline.
Yeah.
Okay,
so the way I approach it actually works quite well, and that's the way I teach it as well. So the best thing to do with a business plan is work out, what am I trying to achieve here? And one of the first questions I ask is, am I setting up a brain surgeon or Branson type business? So if it's a brain surgeon business, if I want to be the specialist and I love what I do and I want to be the best thing in my local environment, that. And if I want to be a Branson and I've got a bigger global focus, I'm not going to be necessarily the technician in my business. I'm going to be the person who orchestrates things. So that's the first choice you have to make. It's really like, what do I really like doing? Because if you don't, you end up doing stuff you really don't like doing. And you know, that's such a common problem. People grow a business and all of a sudden they find themselves managing people and stuff and things and thinking, that wasn't what I went into business for. So first thing, like Branson or brain surgeon, which one would you choose? So anyone care to give an answer to that?
I'd like Branson's money.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the problem. People get too caught up with the money and thinking that we can't have lots of money if we're a brain surgeon, a smaller type business, but a real specialist in what you do. But have a think about what a brain surgeon business looks like. It's the brain surgeon doing what they do awesomely well and being known for what they do awesomely well. And then they have other people do their stuff. So the brain surgeon doesn't do their own bookkeeping. They certainly don't do their admin. They're not at the front desk welcoming you when you walk in the door. They just do the stuff that they're really, really good at, and they charge really, really well for it. And they have other good people around them who are doing that stuff. So you can set up a business like that as a specialist, or you can set up a business where you think, no, I'm a really good organizer. I can do the organizing bit. So, and you don't usually find that people are the same. You know, they're not stretched across all of those things. There's either one thing or another. So once you've decided on that, then I think about the time frame. So in what time frame am I planning? So if I think about, okay, so what sort of time frame have you been planning in, Lyn?
Probably 6 monthly.
6 monthly?
Yeah.
So that's how often you do a plan. How far forward do you look out?
Probably 5 years.
5 years. Okay, so 5 years. Anyone else? 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, 2 years?
I think 5 years is the standard. That's what I was taught in my management degree in uni.
Yeah. And sometimes 5 years just seems a bit unpredictable. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I reckon in this climate and in this day and age, a 3-year plan is a good idea, because in 3 years you can achieve quite a lot of things and you get a feel for what's really good. So when I first started coaching, I had this idea of, I'm going to be hyper mega global. You know, I'm going to be everywhere, all around the world. I'm going to be famous. I'm going to be this. And then I had a taste of it. I didn't like it very much. I didn't like constant traveling, didn't like being on planes, didn't like being on my own in a hotel room all the time. I just didn't really like it, but I'd had to try it just to find out. So now it's more like my work is global, but I'm local, which kind of, it suits me. So I don't mind traveling and things like that, but I like.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, I just muted you. I meant to
That's
mute
all right.
myself.
That's okay. I'm still muted. Hang on, I'm still muted. Am I muted still, Lyn?
No, you're not.
Oh, good. Okay, cool. So, yeah, so just think about what you want as your lifestyle. More than anything else, think about your lifestyle, because your plan has to fit your life, not the other way around. So you shouldn't be smushing bits of your life into your business. It should work for you so that you have a really nice life. You enjoy your life and you do what you do. So I reckon look out 3 years. And then the other thing I do with that is I think about, well, how old will I be in 3 years? And if I have children, how old will they be? Or my parents, how old will they be? Or what's my life circumstance going to be? Where will I be living? And things like that. So I'm very selfish with it. I look at me first before I look at the business. And then I think, okay, in 3 years' time, you know, I could still be living in my own place where I am now because I'm happy. I could be doing this, I could be doing that. You know, my grandchildren will be this old, my children will be this old, all that sort of stuff. And just think about that life. And then my business fits that life. So, Lyn, when you're running more than one business, you've got to kind of allocate parts of your brain into those businesses as well. And so, you know, if you say, for example, you had 2 businesses running, one's your main business, so you do like 3 days a week on it, the other one you do 2 days a week on it, and the income and the effort has to be proportional as well. So, you know, you can't be spending 3 days a week on something that is only a very minor part of your income or your interest. So, and even, you know, if it's a growing business, yes, you're going to have to spend some time on it, but just get the proportion right. So a 3-year plan is good. And it's just like, it's more about just set your intention. Where will I be in 3 years' time? What kind of money will I be earning? What will I be doing with that money? Why do I need that money? So many people say to me, I want to be a millionaire. That's lovely, but do you really need to be a millionaire? And what's the trade-off for being a millionaire? And the trade-off is usually getting on a plane, you know, going and spending your time in hotel rooms, doing whatever the equivalent of that is, and often overworking. And so you just work out, well, how much is enough? What do I need for my own purposes? And how much am I going to be happy with? And then you work out, everything else just works out from there. So let's say you had a goal of 500,000, for example, then you would work out how many days a week you want to work, how many hours you want to work, how many holidays you want to have per year, and then you work out, okay, what's my, if I work out on an hourly rate, what's my hourly rate going to be to serve those people to get my income goal and my profit goal? Does this make sense? Making sense? Yeah, cool. So if I wanted to make 500,000 and I only wanted to work 48 weeks of the year, give myself 4 weeks holidays like normal people have, then I would work my hourly rate out accordingly. And then I would also think, well, who can pay me that money? So if I and I also work out that I can't work, if I was working a 40-hour week, not all 40 hours are going to be productive. They're not all going to be billable. So I work out I might be working 30 hours and then 10 hours of non-billable stuff. So these are very practical considerations first before you start the planning. And unfortunately, most people start their planning with the exterior stuff, like who are the customers, what's their need, all that sort of stuff. But I start it from a selfish point of view, because otherwise you'll end up in a business you don't like, which, been there, done that. Don't do that. So you work out what what you want and the money you want and why you want the money and what you want to do with the money, and then you work out how the business fits that. So
that's brilliant, and that I think that's particularly useful for so many business owners who've gone out and are actually consulting or contracting back into environments. Do you do that sort of models with people who are producing, say, products? Because quite a few of the women that are going into our sessions, our Grow and Thrive sessions, are product manufacturers, skincare, herbal products, you know, whatever, candles, organic products. There's small shop owners. Can you, you know, I suppose it still works working out that sort of thing in terms of your pricing model.
It still works. So what you have to do with that, see, consulting is different because you don't have as much in terms of cost of sales. So consulting is, you know, you've got a big chunk of that money is you can keep it. Whereas when you're working with products, you have to work on your profit margin. So you work out what's my profit margin, how much of that. So I always work out how much do I want to earn. So if I wanted to earn, let's say, $200,000 a year, then I work out what my profit margin is on my products, and I might have to sell $400,000 of product to make $200,000 of profit. And so I just work it back from there, and then just work out. And I love the whole thing about having a product and being in sales means that it takes as much effort to make one sale as it does to make multiple sales to one person. So it's about a mindset thing and thinking about, okay, so let's say if you wanted to make $1 million a year, and working on my grid is, you know, if it's 48 weeks and 30 billable hours and 10 non-billable. So if you're selling for 30 hours a week, imagine what you could create in 30 hours by having a totally different sales mindset and selling to different people or different markets rather than selling the one-to-one. So we get a little bit stuck in that sort of narrow mindset of like, this is what I think I can do, instead of opening up and thinking, you know, I'm planning to have a much bigger business. I'm planning to have a better lifestyle. So I'm going to think about this differently. And what I love to do is, in a service-based business, add a product that can sell while you're asleep. And in a product-based business, sell a service. So teach people what you do, teach people how you do it, how to use your products and things like that. So there's lots of different ways of making money. And so all of that goes into your planning. So, you know, the plan for me, it needs to be something where you look at it regularly, it never gathers dust, and it's something where you can say, okay, here are my milestones. You know, by this date, I'd like to be here and there and there and there. But you don't get so set in stone that you get really stressed about it. It's more about, these are just my guideposts of what I want to do, what I want to achieve.
And I've got another question for you, Pauline. If you're doing a 3-year, that's a fairly long-range planning cycle. How often should you revisit? How often should you refresh it?
Well, I always break a plan into 90-day plans. So I'll go, here's 3 years, big broad overview, and you've got to allow for a bit of synchronicity in there, because, you know, the universe is going to give you whatever it wants to give you and whatever you ask for. So here's my 3-year plan. I break it up into 2 years, 12 months, 90 days, and then a week. What am I doing this week to achieve my 90-day plan? And if I plan that properly, my 90-day plan will give you my 12 months, my 2 years, my 3 years. So it's like big broad focus first, and then put the microscope on it and come down to, what am I doing today? And so you would look at your plan, your big plan, look at it every 6 months or so. You can look at it every 3 months if you want to. If it's really relevant and it's got some good milestones on it, you think, okay, in the next 3 months I want to be here. So you go then back and look at the big plan at the end of those 3 months and say, am I here or am I not? Was I being realistic or not? So it's a good way of just checking what you're doing and what you're not doing. Cool.
Yeah, that's really helpful. That's brilliant.
And so what should be included in a plan? So there's a few basic things in a plan: money, time, customers, and your product and service for a basic. That's your 4 basics. And then you start thinking about strategy. What's my actual strategy for achieving this? And then diving deeper into things like operations, marketing, sales, all those sorts of things. So you get the big broad overview first, and then you go deeper into the marketing strategies. Now, don't set a full-on marketing strategy for 3 years in your big long-term plan. You're going to do that in the 90-day plan instead. So, you have an intention. I'm going to have 100 customers or 1,000 people in my database at the end of X period of time, and they're going to be like this, and you describe them, and then you work out, how am I going to get to those people? How do those people find out about me? And then you just break it down into little actionable steps. So, being part of BWA is one of those steps in your marketing exercise where you consciously lean into whatever opportunities you can find and create within an organisation like BWA. So it's not, I'm going to go to 10 events, I'm going to, talk to 20 people, I'm going to get X number of clients. It's just not like that. It's more like, this is my intention, this is what I'm going to give, and this is what I'm going to encourage people to do, to relate to me and do those sorts of things. So does that make sense? Yep.
Yeah, it does. I think that with the customer piece, really understanding who your customers are and identifying then how you can, this is the collaboration piece, which I love doing with members, is actually identifying, well, who do you want in the room that's going to be either a great referrer, potential prospective client, or someone who can be a part of your distribution channel, or an alliance, or another collaborator or co-creator with you. And actually thinking about, well, who are going to be those significant stakeholders that are going to connect you and position you and help you attract and convert customers.
Yes.
And I think that seems to be a lot of what people, when they get it, then they really start seeing the value of actually having strategic kind of alliances.
Yes.
And if they can do that with us, then they will actually start thinking about how to do it with others, with other potential, allied strategic partnerships. And, that's an exciting thing. So that's all a part of that whole customer piece in the strategy.
And the thing about customers, you attract the kind of customers who want what you've got. The whole spark of what you've got is what's attractive to people. So, for example, you and I've discussed this, Lyn. So I'm a creator, so I like to create things, and I'm an ideas person, and you're a people person. So you love to, you immediately go to, who do I know as a solution, and then I go, what can I do as a solution?
Yeah.
So what I love about that whole collaboration is that I've got someone who's the opposite, well, not quite the opposite, but who's someone who has a different skill set to me, who can be really helpful. And I've got a skill set for you that can be really helpful. So it's not about trying to be all things to all people, but just working in your strength. And so your plan has to reflect that. Don't try and do, like, I see so many people who start out being technicians, and then they end up with a business where they are doing all the management stuff, and they absolutely hate it because it's just not their strength. So, do your strength, and then find somebody who can do the thing that is not your strength. And you start building, and it could be a virtual team, it could be outsourced, it could be strategic alliances, business partners, whatever it is. You build a really lovely dynamic team around you who can each use their own strengths and get to where you really want to go.
Pauline, just on that note, what would your advice be for business women who might be starting out fairly new with their business? They're very much, I'd say, a product specialist. They don't have a lot of business management experience. What kind of resources out there are available for them as a starting point to try and, help them put a plan together? And would you recommend, bringing on a consultant or outsourcing the planning stage for their business to help them kind of set that up?
That's a really good question, Sarah, and there's some excellent help. There's some really good government agencies that help very small startup businesses, And I've always been in that situation myself. So I'm a serial business starter. Love it. And so it was more a case of trying to find information when I couldn't find it. You know, a lot of years ago when I was first starting, I couldn't get the information, but now it's readily available. So there's lots of business, government business resource centre, and they have free coaching available. You can get about 7 sessions of coaching a year with one of those government agencies to get you started. And so they will help you through the planning process as well, and the product development, and help you fill in the skills that you don't have. So get that launch pad, get that started, and don't outsource the planning to anybody, because nobody knows you like you. If someone said to you, I think you should do this, but it doesn't resonate with you, you're not going to do it. So collaborate with somebody and really give them a good understanding of who you are and what your strengths are and what you love and what you do, and just that whole essence of, this is my joy, this is what I do. Then you're more likely to get a plan that you really like as well. So and once you've got that business launched and started, then you go to you have different mentors, different coaches throughout your business career who can help you at various stages as well. But there's plenty of free help out there.
Okay, so Pauline, when you do get to that point where you're looking for a mentor or a business coach, what are the sorts of things that you should be looking out for? Because there are a lot of people out there that call themselves a business coach and the quality's just not there. Yeah. So is there anything apart from a bit of gut instinct that you can tell us to use?
Look, for me, when to put it back the other way, when I'm looking for clients, I like people who have got a really can-do attitude, who I know are going to do the work, and someone who's got a really good sense of humour. Because when it gets tough, you have to be able to laugh, otherwise you're not going to get anywhere. So find someone that you're compatible with, but make sure they're not a me too person, or someone who'll pat you on the head and just go, yes, you're doing well, dear. You want someone who's tough enough to be able to say, you know what, you're on the wrong track there. You really need to think about that, and let me show it to you from a different perspective. And then they can help you just extrapolate that whole thing that you're thinking about and help you think of it in a different way. So if I was too nice to my clients, they wouldn't need me. So one of the first things I do is right up front is say to people, look, I'm really blunt. I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you what it's like. So find someone who's capable of telling you the truth and telling you what you need to know and helping you see things from a different perspective. And in my book, I don't think you're a business coach unless you can do money. Because if you can't help someone with the money side of their business, then you might be a marketing coach or a sales coach or this coach or that coach. But if you don't do the package of business, then I don't think you get that holistic view of the business. So that's just my personal opinion. That would be someone that I would always look for, someone who has more of the holistic view. If I'm looking for a specialist, if I've got everything else sorted and I'm looking for a marketing coach, then I'd specifically look for a marketing coach. But someone who will, really, you need to be able to talk to them and relate to them, but they're not your best friend. Like, they really need to be able to just bring it up to you and show you what's going on, and you being willing to say, oh, okay, I get it. Now I know what I need to do. Does that help, Donna?
Yeah, it does. I must say, I've had a couple of experiences, and I thought I was getting that person that would tell me when I was heading in the wrong direction, and I didn't get that. I got the pat on the back type thing, and it wasn't what I needed.
Yeah.
And I think I've found it a bit difficult to. I guess now I know what I'm looking for, but whether you can squeeze that out of them before you engage them is another thing.
So the thing is to ask better questions at the beginning. Yes. And just give them a scenario. So tell me, when I do this, this and this, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it when I start, dissing myself or, complaining or not doing the work? What are you going to do about it? And ask them what they're going to do about it. Yeah. Because if they don't have a good, strong answer, then they're really not, in a coaching mode. They're not a good coach.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But you live and learn, don't you?
You do.
I have.
50% of marriages fail. Just saying. If people knew at the beginning what any relationship's going to be like, they probably wouldn't go ahead with it.
And one of the things,
put you off a business coach, I'm sure Pauline's great.
one of the things I like to do, and it's kind of off the subject of planning, but it is on the subject of keeping people on track to doing what they said they would do. So at the end of every coaching session, I ask people what 3 things of value they got out of a session, because sometimes what I think I'm delivering is not what they're getting or not what they're hearing. So I want to know what they've heard and what they're going to implement, and we work out what they're doing for homework and what they're going to do, like what they got out of value out of the session. And sometimes it's really surprising. It could have been just a throwaway line or something. They're going, wow, I really like the perspective on that. That just changed my mind completely. So it's good to get that kind of feedback from your clients as well, so that you know you're delivering what they want as well, but also finding out upfront what they want before you start working with them. So that makes a good client, and it's a good relationship. So what else do you want to know about planning?
Pauline, I have another question. Just some ladies I've spoken to from the campaign are in a position where they've got a product that they've invented or come up with. However, they need finance. They need some kind of cash injection to get the business off the ground. So what role does a business plan play in getting investors on board, or perhaps getting government funding and things like that?
That's another very good question. So I like the way you think, Sarah. So the government people can tell you what government grants there are. Everyone thinks, I'm going to start a business, I'll get a government grant. Think again. There's not that much money for starting up small businesses. You have to be really you have to be in a export innovation program or whatever it is that, you've got to fall into a category and jump through lots of hoops. So the best thing to do is have a cash reserve. If you've got a job, keep working at your job and building up a cash reserve, because there's nothing quite like your own money. Try not to borrow it if you can, because borrowing it puts you behind the 8 ball immediately. If you have to borrow it, build in the payback process into your budgeting as well. So let's say you had to borrow $10,000 to start a business, build that $10,000 repayment of that loan as quickly as you can into your business right from the start. So it's not something you're carrying over from year to year to year, because that's very expensive. Unless you have a really good business plan and you have good history, banks are very reluctant to lend to you. So, you might try other sources of finance. Just be careful about your interest rate, careful about how it works. Some people go to family and help them finance it, but again, have a very good structure set up so that you know how it's going to be repaid and that you are held accountable to repaying that as well. You can dip into your home loan. If you've got some reserves in there, you can dip into that. But same thing, pay it back. Don't mess around with it, just pay it back. But it is a case of you either bootstrap it or get someone else to finance you. And more often than not, bootstrapping is probably the best alternative. You put your own money in, because there's nothing quite like your own money for making you accountable to holy cow, that's my money. I better use it wisely. Yeah. So, yeah.
And what about using a distributor? Is that another pathway? If you've got a product and you want to move it and you don't have the money to, say, do a massive amount of marketing, would approaching a distributor be feasible, do you think?
Yeah, look, I think there's always a role for that. If you don't have the marketing nous, you don't have the network, you don't have the real knowledge to get started, then using a distributor is a good idea. It's a bit like writing a book. Someone who knows what they're doing can get you to be a bestseller. And if you're doing it on your own, it can be a bit more of a struggle. You've got to do your own marketing and things like that. But sometimes just borrowing someone else's expertise is a good way of getting going, getting some runs on the board. It's a bit like buying a franchise, learning what you need to know, and then breaking free and doing your own business from there, because you know what you're doing.
I've had a little bit of experience with distributors, Sarah, and they still require you to generally, in today's terms, they still require you to have a fairly sound support marketing strategy, and to be able to provide them with a lot of marketing collateral and marketing stuff and promos and campaigns and things that sort of support them. It depends on the industry, but particularly pharmaceutical distributors, distributors around that are going into retail. They want you to be providing that customer brand, so that their outlets are also benefiting from holding your product. So you don't always get if you just leave it to the distributor, it'll just end up in a catalogue and it'll get forgotten. It'll end up on the back shelf. It won't get good shelf space. You know, you will have signed off a lot of your own rights to go out direct to market, often through it by going in with a distributor, and it can actually sometimes be a death knell. I've seen that with another business I had. But just so be well aware of what the constraints are and what the expectations are if you are looking at distributors. You don't want exclusive distributor agreements, and you don't want to be having to commit to X number of promotions where you're pretty much giving your product away, but it's costing you a lot in, you know, advertising in local area marketing and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks.
Yeah, I think there's a belief in small business is that someone is going to save me. You know, I'll get onto somebody else's network system or distribution system or something, and someone's going to save me. Well, no one's going to save you. Sorry, there isn't such a thing. You've really got to save yourself. You've got to be 100% believe in yourself and do all the hard work necessary to get there. So, and all of the mistakes I've made in business have been because I didn't go in with both eyes open. So I've made heaps of mistakes. That's how I learn. But it's mainly been because I didn't read the fine print, or I didn't quite understand what I was getting into. I didn't want to appear dumb, so I went, oh, okay, I'll just go along with that. And, you know, living and learning by that it's hard, but it also makes you much more resilient and resourceful to trust yourself and believe in yourself and like do the work you're supposed to do to know what you're getting into.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Pauline. We've got probably 5 minutes to wrap up. So, you know, maybe you could just give us our key takeaways, just to summarise what are the important things with business planning that as business owners or business managers or CEOs that we need to be really thinking about.
Okay, for the happiness factor, be selfish. Like really work out what you want first. And then work out the plan so that you can get what you want and serve the people that you want to serve as well. So, and be very clear about the people that you serve. So, you know, you get your money sorted out, make sure you understand the money side of the business and that you're putting that in your planning, and understand who the customers are. And your first wave of customers for a lot of people won't be that, you know, your family and friends, that's your first wave. You've got to think about the second, third, fourth, fifth waves after that, because it can just stop suddenly if you haven't. And do your planning long range, but not as many details, and then just focus it down to 90 days. And by doing that, you can work out the strategies you can do in the next 90 days. You can have a weekly accountability to say, I'm doing that this week, which will get me to the long range goal. So, and that should keep you excited and interested enough if you're actually hitting all those milestones along the way.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Pauline. I'll make sure that if anyone wants to find you, you're on our directory. So, yes. And when's our next business planning focus session? If anyone wants to jump online again, is coming up. I think next week on Wednesday or Thursday. It's in the calendar. But that's brilliant. I'll just stop recording now, and we can say goodbye to our crew.